So first we have to look at the preceding or remote causes and then the immediate. Remember that even when he came in 2020 at a very advanced age, he's now 81. There was the issue about his fitness, about his age. And so people are saying, well, governing a country like that will require somebody who is very, is an all-rounder. You can't just both physically and then intellectually. Not that, but he brought many years of what you may call active and meritorious service in the, it was a senator at 1973 until 2009 when he relinquished, when he left that position. And he has occupied so many top positions, even as vice president to Obama. So he's been there coming, and suddenly he now, they noticed maybe deterioration and so many gaps, that he will be mistaking people for another person and all that, and having a fall. Anybody can have a fall, but the linchpin or the what broke the camel's back was his very everybody agreed, even himself agreed, that it was a very poor performance that he put up on June 27, presidential debate against his arch rival, Donald Trump, whom he beat in 2016. So that performance over 1 hour and then watched by so many millions of people was really what nailed the coffin. And so calls started coming even from his own, admirers that it was time for him to throw in the towel. Well, he gave it a thought, insisting that he's a fighter, because he's somebody, he was stamping on campaign tops and saying the right things over the years. But here comes, gets to a time where an actor, will have to give way when the ovation is loudest. If you don't do that, you are going to be pushed. So there was a combination of a push that now led to, and with all these issues that I have mentioned, there are many of them, which we cannot mention here. There were some colleagues who said he couldn't recognize them. So there is that cognitive deficiency that he had that all culminated in he taking this decision. And to top it up, when he was supposed to now go on the field and campaign against somebody that has vowed to defeat him, he also caught COVID infection and was forced to isolate. So it hasn't been a good run, a good campaign for him. But many are commending him for taking that decision of quitting. He could have, well, if he stayed on, he could have maybe lost the Democrats the election. So all in all, it was a mixed bag. But at the end of the day, now choosing his vice president over the years from 2021, people are now watching to see what Kamala Harris can do to a Trump that is no holds barred candidate, a loose cannon, some people will say.
Right. Thank you very much for your opening contribution. Let me acknowledge the presence of Dr. Paul Mefor. Dr. Paul Mefor, you're welcome back. Dr. Law Mefor, I'm sorry for pronunciation.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for hosting me. Thank you.
All right. We are reacting to the events in the United States, and we are connecting it to what is happening in Africa, especially in Nigeria, in terms of democracy. So what is your reaction? How would you rate the step down of President Biden? Do you think it's a victory for democracy?
Well, thank you for that question. I have been following through in an interview last week on another platform. I called for the Democrats to prevail on Biden to step down. And I did so out of my love for him and the need to give the Democrats a fair chance to win or lose the forthcoming presidential election. You know, in psychology, particularly physiological psychology and all that, it is well established that age has a lot to do with leadership. And even in a normal public and civil life, you get to a point, you just have to retire from active service. And for judges, for lecturers, the top most age allowed is 70. And the man is 81, pushing 82. And it's not to say that if he were a bit more cognitively balanced, he couldn't have pulled through it. And possibly, you know, run America creditably well again for another 4 years. But we can all see that people age differently. And himself and Trump are both old. He's older than Trump. And but we all can see that Trump is a lot stronger than Biden. That's his nature. And in his prime, he was about the best. Nobody can take that away from him. But he cannot continue to live on his past glory, because the work to be done is serious, adult, and urgent. And it requires a very serious mental presence. And he had to be trusted to take quick and sound decisions. And all these have to do with the preparedness of mental processes. That said, on his quitting, I must say that I don't know whether the whole credit should go to him, because he didn't quit on his own. He was prevailed on to quit. People like Obama, Pelosi, and some top Democrats, even their traditional donors, all insisted that he needed to go away from the race. So like most African leaders, even himself would have preferred to stay put, but he was compelled by people who are critical stakeholders in the Democratic Party and Alliance, got him out of the way. That said, I think for even agreeing to quit, because somebody like Trump may not even agree to quit, no matter the outcome. So accepting to be prevailed upon gives him a measure of credit. So one has to permit credit going to him to that extent. And compared to Africa again, I think, well, you need to first and foremost understand that perhaps for one or two countries in Africa, you don't actually have democracy. What we have in Africa, particularly Nigeria, is still civil rule. Civil rule is not the same thing as democracy. Civil rule well, you have civilians, they are not military people who are in power, and there's, they go through what looks like elections, but in the real sense of the word, those are not elections. They are more or less selections. And at the end of the day, people in power are those who owe their allegiance, not to the electorate, but to the process that threw them up. So we are not in a democracy in Nigeria and in most parts of Africa. Well, in a number of countries like South Africa, yes, I think the democracy can lay claim there. Maybe one or two other places, maybe Egypt. Coming to West Africa, I don't know of any. To some extent, we may give it to Ghana, but Ghana even is not there yet as such, but they are coming up. In Nigeria, some efforts have been made, but I don't think we have crossed the Rubicon yet. If I have to score it on a scale of 100%, I think we are just somewhere around 20% in terms of the march or journey towards what you may call a democracy in the real sense of the word. Now, going back to what has happened in the US in the last couple of hours, I think Biden taking the step to endorse Kamala Harris, helped to streamline the rancor that could have broken loose. Whether Harris is a good choice, it remains to be seen. We want to see what will happen with the opinion polls in the following weeks. It will give an indicator on how she is received overall. I know that the traditional Republican voters still want Trump. I know so. I also think the traditional Democrat voters will root for Harris. This is my presumption. If you go by the number of votes with which Biden won the last election, and the number of votes with which Trump lost, there is something instructive about those votes. Trump lost by the number never won, by the number with which no American president had ever won, except Biden. What that means is that you cannot wish Trump away because he delivered a number of votes that no American president before that election had ever emerged. It's very fundamental. So if the same people are determined to return Trump, 80 to 90% of them are determined to return Trump, are we sure that the Democrats can be as determined as those who returned Trump to return Harris? Are there likelihoods that there are some traditional factors that will sway the votes either way? Let me give an example here. The issue of race, are all the Democrats really committed to a color female president? These are issues that will play out eventually. I don't see those who voted for Trump changing radically. But those who voted for Biden may not all vote for Harris. Two things will happen. If, for example, they think she is too colored, a mixture of black and Asian and all that, if they come through in that manner, it means that a substantial number of voters who are traditionally Democrats may want to either stay away, and that is apathy, or swing. switch to the other side. And these are the kind of things that will determine ultimately how these elections, how this presidential election will play out ultimately. I think Trump made a very strong choice of running mate, very good one, if you ask me. And he's young and energetic, but again, like Trump, he appears to be very arrogant as well. Yeah, I listened to him, what he said about Harris not being appreciative enough of being an American. I don't understand that statement. You know, so he appears to be more like Trump. And I had expected somebody that will tone down the rhetorics of Trump. I also would want Trump to tone down his rhetoric. Promising to launch the highest deportation in history, for me, is not a good way to start. He shouldn't lose his base. I
think I have gotten your point, sir.
Okay.
Okay, but before I continue, could you turn your video on? I cannot see you. It's only your picture. I can't see you. I can't see you. All right, all right. Oh, it is still showing your picture.
Well, I don't know why it is freezing. I don't know why it is freezing. You know, don't know whether it's
all right,
network
that's all right. Let's
or what. It's freezing.
All right, let me move back to Mr. Paul Ejime. Now, do you think Biden's speech squarely borders on age or health issues? Because why I'm asking this is that there are those who are of the same age as Biden, but they are still active and sound. And there are those who are of the same age as Trump, but they are inactive. So do you think Biden's pressure to vacate, to decline from contesting for second term squarely borders on age?
Age is one of them. The other one is his performance, his agility. He has lost that. You see that he was, falling, unnecessarily. And I mentioned it, that what nailed it was the performance. It's not just, and we are talking about one of the superpowers of the world today that should be meeting and even interacting with other heads of states, and then maintaining the respect that America thinks is the policeman of the world, and wherever there is any crisis, they go there. So you don't want them to be led by somebody who is, of course, if it was a case of, you can have physically challenged or, people that live with disability. That is different. Here is somebody who has age, who has done more than 40 years, going to 50 years in active service. And and then coupled with this fact that he can no longer deliver. He knows that himself. I told you that after the debate, he accepted that he didn't do, this was unlike a Biden, the Joe that they used to know, who can walk across, bring politicians across the divide, Democrats and Republicans. He was known for that. But if he cannot move properly, physically, and then cannot give cognitive, excellence or functioning at his best, it's not good for him. It's not good for his party, and it's not good for America. And so that was why there were calls even from his party, those who said, well, we love you, but time comes we're all actors, Emmanuel, in this world. Be you a politician or whatever profession you are at, you get to a crescendo, you get to your top, And once you get to that top, that apex, there is nowhere to go other than to come down. You know, it's like somebody, if you're a lawyer, you in Nigeria, you become, you get to the senior advocate of Nigeria, or you become the Attorney General of the Federation. That seems to be the peak. If you are a doctor, I don't know where, you know, all you do is get experience that commands respect. And if you're a politician, you have gotten to, he became senator, and then he's become vice president, and then president. So where else, what is there for him to achieve anymore in terms of public service? So for him, he doesn't need to be pushed. In fact, he was actually delaying it, because some people say he delayed it a bit. But, you know, in politics, there are so many calculations that go into it. The Democrats, they were thinking that perhaps, and he himself thought that perhaps he will be one of the only few people that can defeat Trump. He has done it before and then can do it again. But age and then, you know, fitness is no longer on his side. Okay, and so trying another person, you know, that is the thing. I know you were going to go to Africa for such things. There's somebody in Africa that is 91 and has done 42 years. The fact is that you don't even see him. I'm talking about Paul Biya. His country, Cameroon, is running on more or less on auto. The man can go on leave for 3-4 months, but the country is moving. That is not governance. That is not, you know, participatory governance. That is not leadership. So you can try that with America, you know, where questions will be asked, not only from the opposition, but from his own party, because they are thinking of putting their right foot forward. They are thinking that at any point, their representative will be one that will be sharp, will be one that will command respect. Yeah. If he goes to sleep at a meeting or can no longer deliver, or when there is crisis, is not in a position to bring leadership. These are questions, and so they didn't want to go that route. And so the pressure was there. And then let's see whether he has made the correct decision in the candidate that he has chosen. So it was not just a case of age. It is a combination of age, of his performance, of his you know, ability to govern. You are not just there. A leader must be there to give, you see beyond the others and be able to now mobilize them, galvanize them to do to give the vision that you have as a leader. It's not just a question of sitting down in one place and this is somebody who, when a push comes to shove, America is a nuclear state. He is somebody who can now maybe press the nuclear button. He and one of, you know, a couple, just one or two, as the commander-in-chief, he's the one, if America is under threat, he's the one that was going to push the button if they now decide to use a nuclear, you know, weapon. Can you entrust the country and that kind of responsibility to somebody who is no longer, you know, with age? There are old age conditions like dementia. You have become forgetful. You know, you are not remembering anything, and then you can fall asleep. I mean, you can't cheat nature. So that is these are the things that you have to consider in determining a leader for a country like the United States.
All right, thank you very much. Now, still on this situation, some people usually regard the United States as an icon of modern democracy. But when you look deep into the democracy as practiced by the United States, you discover that there is a lot to be abhorred. For example, now, lately, we saw the Capitol Hill invasion in 2020. And then we recently we saw how President Trump was nearly assassinated. And then during the presidential debate, we saw the torrents of abuse President Trump was heaping on the current president, Biden. So all these things, do you see them as an example of a true democracy compared to what we have in Africa? And again, the Constitution of the United States allows even a convicted person to still contest for office. Trump has been convicted. He was convicted in May 30 of felony, and yet he still contested. Unlike in Nigeria, where an ex-convict cannot contest for election, for any political office. So do you think that Nigeria and Africa have a lot to learn in terms of democratic principles from the United States? Or is there an exchange of principles and qualities of democracy? What do you think?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Emmanuel, okay. All right, thank you. I thought it was for Dr. Mefor. Yeah, you have, there is a lot of things to unpack here. One is, let's begin with democracy as it is defined. It's not necessarily the best, but provides, for all those systems that have been tried, is the one that has provided the options for you to be able to change somebody, a leader, when he's not performing. Okay, that is key, and that is why you have elections, whether or not those elections are what they should be, and depending on context. For instance, in America is an old democracy. It has practiced, it's almost how many years now, going to 200, 300 years as independent, 1776, when they got their own, had their own war of independence. So you cannot really, because so that we don't compare apple and oranges. But my theory usually is that if you are practicing a system, you don't take what you like in it and then jettison the others that do not favor you. There is a complete dish, menu. You have to agree to it. Once you have signed up to it, you don't now go and leave human rights or, constitution or electoral laws and then, to pick and choose. So that is the problem that Africa has. But here, democracy, the practice has been under threat. Not today. It's been gradual. In fact, some experts will tell you that from 2007, there have been some erosion of, democratic principles, not just in the developing countries, but even the so-called, countries that have practiced it for so many years. And you have given an example of America. Usually they will tell you it is about institution, not personality. But you see that if Trump will be allowed to have his way, the 2020 election would have been, the result would have been toppled. It took just his former vice president, Mike Pence, to be commended, because even when like they said, they invaded the Congress, he needed to take that decision of insisting that he will go and certify the votes. Because if they didn't certify the votes, then there will not be a winner, should not be decided. But even under attack, the lawmakers still came back. Thank God we have law here. So law and the lawmakers. Lawmakers came back and did what they had to do. And so that is adhering to the law as part of a democratic practice. My theory is that the system, actually, that democracy is not really the one at fault. It is the practitioners. And who are they? It's just, particularly politicians, their attitude and disposition. A Trump cannot be said to be democratic the way he's going. If we were just really to put him on X-ray his conduct, Because this is somebody who does not even believe in it. If he doesn't win, there is no election. And then he's so caustic and abusive in his language. Okay? And he has committed, there are people, many will not go scot-free with what Trump has done. But again, societies have their own people you call outlaws. So you can excuse some of them. What is happening is for the majority, the greater majority, the majority of Africans, of Americans, forget that he has his base. There are those who were good or bad, and that's why he's still popular. He has his support base, those who they want to think the way he's thinking, which is against the law, against the Constitution. There is the white supremacists. There are those who, do certain things, and he will support them, like those who invaded Congress. They were his supporters. Yet, and then he has been involved in defrauding New York State. He's been convicted. But if that is what the Constitution says, that a convict can still run, that is not really a big problem. How many convicts are in a position to even present themselves for election, if not only a few like Trump? But the point to take away from there is that a system will have institutions that will function to the extent that the majority of the people will assess equality. They will assess the benefits of governance. There will be security. There will be peace. There will be stability. There will be the level playing ground, the environment for everybody to pursue their businesses unmolested. Of course, you have racism. You have this issue of sexism, the lesbian gay group, a group that have become so powerful that they have a lobby that if you don't support them, you may not win. Or like the Israeli lobby. I was in the States in 1993, and the group we were in was to study what you call policy making in foreign policy, in American foreign policy, how policies are made. And then we met with some of these groups, particularly the Israeli lobby. They are very the Jewish lobby, they call them. They are very, because they have money. If you don't, if they don't support you, they can use everything to pull you down. That is why politicians, they want to win elections. For them, it's about elections and the next election. So somebody like Obama, probably in principle, will not have anything to do with the lesbians and gay. But what did you see happen during his time? During his time, that was because he could not go against them. He didn't have the muscle. He didn't have the money. He didn't have the political power. So he came under that umbrella to even have the guts to come and push it in Africa. And Africans were telling him, listen, in Ghana, even in Kenya, is where his father came from. And somebody did it in Senegal. But they told him quietly, listen, we have more problems in Africa than going to talk about how a man and a woman will become my husband and wife. When in the Bible and every other place, it is said that it is about a man, a woman, not a man and a man. Okay? So, but that is politics for you. If you want to go into it, there are certain things that will go against your principle. But so it depends on you to choose to remain, to have integrity, to be principled, and then maintain your moral ground. Or once you join that group, you are most likely going to go against the grain of your moral fiber. So that is what it is. What am I saying in effect? Democracy can work in any space, but it is not only in developed countries that you have people who are undermining democracy. Even in the place like America, you have a Trump who, if he had his way, he will become a dictator and be acting arbitrarily. He thinks he's still in charge of the reality show of internship, where he has to tell somebody you are fired and then the person is fired. But if you are operating a democracy, you have to, obey the law. He's not he's not known to. There have been so many infractions. He's been disobeying this, what do you call them, misdemeanors. He's been caught in so many hands in the cookie jar. But because he's Trump, he has money to get his way. That is the other angle, the role that money plays in politics. It is very destructive. It is dangerous because you can use that to buy judges, buy judgment. And look at Trump. Trump is also, you see the toleration of the Supreme Court in America. They seem to be that when the Democrats are there, they appoint certain people that will think in their particular way. When the Republicans are there, they also, that is why Trump can do certain things and hope that they will get judgment at the apex court. Whether or not that is still democratic is another matter. But the final word here is that it is not, for me, it's not the system, it's not democracy that is the problem. It is the practitioners, the politicians in particular. And now you can see that all the other segments are joining them. The executive, the legislature, you have a place where parliaments are just doing what the executive says. And even the judiciary, they have become another dangerous tool, giving judgments that, you cannot even reconcile under democracy. So democracy has to really take a recalibration, and depending on what works for each country to be put in context.
Thank you very much. There is a question I would have asked Dr. Mefor, but his line has broken off. So let me ask you the question now.
Okay.
Kamala Harris is now on her way to becoming the next US president. But many are saying, oh, she's a woman and she's also a Black. So her chances of success, her chances of victory are quite low. Now, this throws up a question of racism and gender discrimination in the United States. Now, I want you, when compared to Nigeria, because in Nigeria and in Africa, what we are suffering from is ethnicity. During the elections, politicians use ethnicity to manipulate the process and get to power. So do you think there is a parallel between the ethnicity in Africa, and Nigeria in particular, and racism in the United States? Do you think racism and gender issues are factors in US election?
Of course, yes. And you remember the George Floyd issue, which is a recent thing of Black Lives Matter. That hasn't. And what are we talking about? Remember that Blacks, when the Rosa Parks and others, and then Martin Luther King Jr. So they were all fighting for equality, for rights, of minority, particularly Black and all the others, because it's not just Black. And so it is there. Whether they deny it, they can be in denial, they can say, well, or try to sweep it under the carpet. But from time to time, you see that it rises its head. You see that police have been, complicit in when they go to Black communities, the modus operandi or their method might be different, or unlike when they go to a white-dominated community. They can, and also in the operation, in shooting, they can easily fire a shot at somebody depending on their color, or use a teaser and all that. So their method has been fashioned. They have been So somebody said it is systemic, that it is something in the system that they need to purge. There is a sense in that. What is happening is that these minority groups, particularly blacks or Africans, they have tried to assert their own rights too, like following the example of Luther King and Rosa Parks. Remember the story of Rosa Parks? This was a woman who she made her name. She was normally, you are not supposed to, at times, segregation. Remember apartheid? It was almost as bad, that there are places where the blacks will not venture. And then in a bus, when a black man a person is seated and a white man comes in, the black will have to stand up for the white. But Rosa Parks in her time refused not to do that. And then the case was on. And then she's remembered today because of that advocacy, because of that activism. So it has not stopped. It's still there. America is dealing with racism. It is dealing with, all kinds of white supremacists. Some people believe that whites are superior to blacks or the other races. So it's still there. But for Africa, the issue goes beyond, well, whether you can call it racism or whatever. It's not, because racism usually will talk about races, that is the white and black and all that. In Africa, it is about tribes or ethnic group, which has, but many countries that have developed, have moved forward. Because remember that was what led to the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, where almost 1 million people were killed. It was an ethnic thing, okay? And so on and so forth. So this has come to define politics in many African countries or developing countries, in India and then Pakistan, in other places, it does. And then there is also religion. Even though none of these religions most of them were imported, Christianity or Islam, if we now have to zero in on Nigeria, none of these religion is indigenous, because you have their own traditional religion. But Nigerians have been made to take on either Islam or Christianity, to the point they have become either more Muslim than people in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, but still they still go and make on pilgrimage there. Or the Christians claim to be holier than the Pope, even though they still go on pilgrimage in those places. So it is the attitude that, again, like democracy, actually, some of these religions have not actually been practiced. It's not the religion that have failed. It is the people, the practitioners. Because when you bring persons, you bring people into certain things, they bring human elements. Even, for instance, I'll give you an example. Even Catholic religion has a infusion of Roman culture. That is why it is called Roman Catholic. And that was why you had a revolution marching, the Lutheran group that separated, and now you have Pentecostal groups. So they have brought commercialization into the whole thing. And that now is being politicized. So when the politicians know that this is something they can use to win votes, or they know they have done something wrong, but they know that because using these primordial considerations, they are likely going to escape justice, they play that card, a card of ethnicity, of a religion, or whatever. They will weaponize it, thinking that, but good governance does not know whether you are a Muslim or does not respect religion or creed or race, because it is, a rule of the thumb thing. If what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So for me, it's not limited. These are the disruptions to democratic governance that you find both in developing countries and the so-called developed countries. They are still there. They can't go away, but they have different faces. That is what is there. But they are all anti-democratic factors that every society that practices them, or where it is prevalent, should be able to, eliminate them. But it's difficult because it involves human beings, and human character is something that you have to live with and correct as much as possible. Without the law, human beings will be, worse than animals.
All right. In your final words, are there positive lessons Nigerians and Africa should learn from the events in the United States currently?
Yes, there is, and even America too will learn from its own from what is happening, because that is what life is about. Being able to review what you have done, to know what has worked, and then the best practices, and so on and so forth. But for Africans and developing countries, one is that knowing when to quit, when the ovation is loudest. With this idea of having somebody who is 91 or how many, or spending, should, because you have millions of people. We are not saying that old people should be removed, no. But when they will be covering themselves in glory, if they now see that if you have given some length of time in service to your country, you will be doing the service. If you now think that without you, that you are indispensable, the country cannot go ahead. No, with your service, like we are actors. So the actor acts his or her role, and then quits the stage so that other actors. That is how you enjoy. Imagine watching a film or a comedy, or something where it's only one person that is featured. You will get bored. It becomes, and at times there is nobody who has a monopoly of intelligence or leadership qualities. You have to allow the others, particularly the young ones who think they have something to offer. Because what has happened is that the so-called leaders of tomorrow think that there is no tomorrow, that these elderly people, they are now watching them. My people say that the young goat is always watching how the mother goat choose the cud. So you can see that even some Gen Z group are even worse than the older people, because you see those you have as ministers now somebody is putting money in private, taking money from public fund and putting in private accounts, and says it's a mistake, or that does not know that is wrong. That is corruption. They are learning from the elders. Okay, so it cuts across this advocacy for good governance will show us that everybody, every segment of society, because we're talking about inclusivity, the women, the young people, the elderly, they all have roles to play. Family, the father and the mother, the children, everybody, and the civil society, and the society themselves, the electorate. They should not leave government. They say governance is politics is too serious an issue to be left to politicians. If you let them, you cannot complain. So you have to come out. You saw what happened in Kenya. So let people be involved, not be involved in violence, but hold their leaders to account. And also select leaders or elect leaders that can deliver, not push them there because they have money. And politicians should also change their ways. Let them not rig the election. Let them obey the Constitution. Let them obey human rights, and let them respect human rights, and know that the world will be peaceful. It will be good, because if you don't allow peace to reign, you are only causing war.
Mr. Paul Ejime, Global Affairs Analyst, thank you very much for your contribution. We hope to meet you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right.